Jackie here, being joined by our good friend Rebecca Harold. She is the privacy professor, knows everything about security, cybersecurity, I should say, and we're going to start off talking about something that Jackie just got done mentioning a little bit ago.
Yeah, so we're in October, which means we think of different things, maybe breast cancer awareness, we're blue today for bullying, but also we're talking about malware.
Yes, malware, and I think we're talking about that because this is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So that's something that organizations all over the United States are starting to put different messages out there, some of them daily, some of them weekly, but definitely that was great to show how to prevent malware early on in the show when I saw at the very beginning.
And the malware, for those that may not understand what malware is, why don't you explain what that is?
Yeah, so malware is a general term that references like viruses that get in and mess up your files. It also has to do with different types of keystroke loggers that might be taking everything that you are typing and sending it off to other folks. Trojan type of programs. A Trojan is something that looks like it should be doing one thing, but in the background it's really doing something else malicious. So it's a good thing. Everybody who has a smartphone, who has a computer, a laptop, a tablet, needs to protect against malware, that's for sure.
You need to have your security software running at all times, don't you?
You do, and you know what else needs to have security software running are the voting systems, because
this is getting scary because we're getting very close. We're inside of 40 days now.
Within 40 days, and you know, just last week we heard some more news come out. We learned that some hackers who have been pretty assuredly coming from Russia are trying to hack into the different DNC or Democratic officials' mobile phones. And a lot of folks think that that is coming as a result of that big hack that they did into the DNC servers over the past year. We just heard about it earlier in the year, but they collected so much information through that particular hack that now they have all these phone numbers and they have emails and they have other information. I mean, there's a lot of information out there. So they're using that now to try to get into different things like not only those mobile phones, but also the FBI announced last week that the hackers are also trying to get into each state's voter registration database. And in fact, they identified 20 different states who they've been trying to attack, and they were actually successful in 4 states. And they've only released the name of 2 of those states. One is Illinois and one is Arizona. So I think for October, it's good to think about, well, what's the security of that voter registration databases and the servers? And it's a good thing that voter registration servers are typically not connected to the actual voting systems and voting machines themselves, but it's still a problem because they can get in and get a lot of information about who's been voting history, who's Republican, Democrat, Independents, email addresses. And what can you do when you get a lot of email addresses? You can start spoofing them. So for National Awareness Month, you need to make sure that if you're getting some emails from what looks like an official from one of the political parties and it says something kind of weird or unusual, be very on high alert that maybe that's been a spoofed email.
Now, what do you do if you do get something from someone here? How do you go about looking at to see? Because you might see the email, but is there a way to look beyond just what physically pops up on your screen as the email location? Great
question. So there's a couple of things you could do. Initially, what I do typically is just hover my mouse over the properties of the email, and I guess I'll back up because a lot of people don't know how to get to the properties. But if you hover your mouse over any link, don't click the link, but hover over the link. Just
point over it.
Yeah, and look down in the lower, oftentimes it's in the lower left part of your browser. See where that URL or the web address is pointing to. And if it's pointing to a different web address than what it says on your screen, that is a big indicator that that is not coming from somebody legitimate. Now, if it looks like it's coming from somebody in the Democratic Party or Republican Party or Independent or any other group, I would say contact the actual party by phone and say, hey, I'm getting emails and it looks like it's coming from your folks. Are you aware of this? Did you send an email that said something like this?
Just try to get it verified.
Try to get it verified, definitely. And talking about verified, that gets into the voting systems too, because for security purposes, we really need to make sure that all of our voting systems have a way to verify that the votes that are shown in the system are the actual votes that the voters entered. So that makes it really important for voting systems to have not only a backup, a mirrored image of all the votes that are going on digitally on a separate type of hard drive, but also paper copies of everything that is being voted on. So
now, does that mean getting a receipt when you vote? Because sometimes you get a little paper that comes out when you get done voting. Do you take that, or what do you do with that?
Well, it depends upon the precinct, because every different precinct might have a little bit different rules. That's something I think is important for people to understand too. In the United States, every state has their own process for voting, and they all use different voting systems. In fact, in Iowa, there's many different types of voting systems that are used in each county, and you can actually get that information online. I can send you a pointer to the map. They have a map and it says exactly the type of voting system. So each voting system has a different type of capability.
1 second here, let me move this.
Oh,
right
I'm
here.
sorry.
There you go. Okay, there you go.
But every type of voting system has a different type of capability. But what we want to have is a paper copy made somewhere. So not only do you get a receipt, but there should be a paper copy somewhere where nobody else can get access to it except for authorized
So how are
voting
we making
officials.
sure our polling stations are doing things like that?
We need to ask them these questions, because one of the problems is at our polling stations, so many times it's not only folks who are on staff, but volunteers.
Right.
We need to have those volunteers receive training so that they can recognize the security red flags that might be coming up. So they need to know, well, where is the location of all of the printed copies of the votes? Where is that located? Make sure that nobody else gets access into that particular area. Also, if there's a wireless capability to the voting system, make sure that that wireless connection is well secured as well.
A secure wireless, not a real basic one.
Well,
Because you went around, for those people that weren't joining us earlier, a couple years ago, you went around and you were able to jump onto people's wireless systems, including, I think, mine, which not anymore, but it was scary that you could just drive by and tap into those systems.
You can use freeware. Me and my sons have been going out since they've been 7 and 9. It's very simple to use this freeware to identify unsecured wireless access points. And so, that's what we did. So we want to make sure that that is a secured wireless connection, meaning it has strong encryption, and also it requires two-factor authentication to get into the system besides.
It might sound simple and you say, well, of course they're going to have it, but you don't know unless you ask.
You don't know. And in fact, a lot of people still don't put enough security on their wireless systems. In fact, over the weekend I was doing some research and I found that in one of Donald Trump's Virginia homes, he has an extensive surveillance system, but it doesn't have any security. So if you know the IP address for his surveillance system, which it's fairly easy to know, if you know the location, you can start figuring out what the IP address is. Knowing the IP address, you could just get right in there through some of the other free tools I told you about in the past and see everything that's going on. So we need good security in not only the voting systems, but every other system.
So we just need to start asking questions and holding people accountable to make sure everything is safe.
Exactly. Ask questions, make sure your polling place. And in fact, I have an email that I have written up, I haven't sent yet, to my polling place here in Des Moines too, that I want to ask about just a few basic security requirements that should be in place.
All right, now those few basic security requirements, if people want to get a hold of you to find out what those are, so maybe they can ask their polling places, will you be able to help them out?
I can sure help them out and give them a list of questions. So you can go out to my website, it's privacyguidance.com, and also privacyprofessor.org. Send me an email and I will be happy to answer any questions that you have and send you a list of the types of questions that you should be asking of your voting officials, because it is really important to do this. We have a couple of bills that were introduced last week or 2 weeks ago by some senators to actually have a law that would require just basic minimum security at all of our voting locations and systems. And I think that would be a great idea.
All right.
A no-brainer. Wonderful. And to follow you along with Twitter, where do you
Yes, Privacy Prof.
There it
so
is. That's
follow
it.
me on Twitter there, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Wonderful. Great job
Thank
as
you very
always.
much.
Thank you.